by Cena. Patton's in the ring. John Cena has set the record. John Cena is a 17-time world champion.
Here is your winner, the new undisputed WWE Champion, John Cena!
You may not like it. In fact, you probably hate it. But at the end of the day, like it or not, John Cena is the GOAT. There is no longer a debate. With a 17th world title, John Cena is the greatest of all time.
Welcome to a special WrestleMania recap, instant reaction for WrestleMania 41, nights 1 and 2. This is McGuire on Wrestling, part of the Celebrate Wrestling Podcast Network. Now realize, if you listen to the actual podcast feed, and if you're subscribed there, you will get a full show with our full panel giving their thoughts on the PLE from top to bottom. But right now, as we're recording this, WrestleMania 41 has just ended. And as you just heard moments ago, John Cena, now a 17-time world champion, breaking Ric Flair's record, asterisk, breaking Ric Flair's recognized record by WWE as a world champion. It's, you know what, you can look it up yourself. It's a long story. But the bottom line is now, as far as the record goes, John Cena has done it. The chicanery, the BS around it, the Travis Scott involvement is all part of this, which we will talk about on the main show, which drops as a full podcast on Monday. However, joining me as we just finished watching the show, which in Alberta here, it's not too bad. It's like 9 o'clock Alberta time right now, which means, Joe, it's 11. And if I'm doing the math right, that puts it at, dear God, Stephen Bennett, why are you still up in the UK?
That's my dedication to wrestling.
What time is it right now?
It's 4 a.m. or 4:01 a.m.
Yeah. Jeepers. So there you go, friends. We're trying to bring you perspectives from around the world here. The other members of our panel have the link, but this isn't the full analysis of the show, guys. Okay, I don't want you diving into matches and examples. But as far as WrestleMania 41 goes, you're leaving seeing John Cena as your WWE champion, so we can talk about that moment. We can talk about what led up to it, but how are you feeling after 2 days of WrestleMania 41? Stefan, it's god-awful late or early in the morning there, so let's start with you.
Very underwhelmed. The result, I'm not overly bothered about. I didn't think Cena would win. I thought there'd be more to this, but very underwhelmed. The way it happened, I was expecting chaos, a lot more to it than the way, because of the way it was all built, and I just felt it was very lackluster.
When we started this call, you said 3 words on how you felt. Say it now.
I can't remember what I said that. I feel cheated.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Why cheated? Why? You mentioned maybe the lack of chicanery. I mean, isn't that what you kind of want?
Yes and no. I think it's how I feel over WrestleMania as a whole this weekend. The 2 shows, I thought night 2 was better than night 1. Absolutely, 100%. I thought the matches were a lot better tonight. But I just thought for WrestleMania, considering how much I enjoyed WrestleMania last year, even taking away me being there aside, I just felt that it was very it didn't feel like a real WrestleMania. It didn't have that feel for me. It missed a lot of elements that I was hoping for and expecting.
Okay, well, from the other side of the world to the other side of our country in Mississauga, Ontario, the one and only Joe Aguinaldo. Joe, you and I were texting back and forth a lot during both nights here, which is funny because night 1, I was actually busy serving as the PA announcer for our Lethbridge Hurricanes, who managed to stave off elimination against the Calgary Hitmen, which is the name of the team that is named after Bret the Hitman Hart. I did text him and mentioned, hey, thanks to your team making us go to Game 6, I am now missing watching WrestleMania Night 1 live, which he had no sympathy for, apparently. He was doing some other things. But nevertheless, in all seriousness, we were texting a lot back and forth during both these shows here. Instant reaction. Do you agree with Stefan? Do you feel cheated, shortchanged, or are you okay with things?
Depends which night you're talking about. I thought night 1, I agree. I thought that was pretty underwhelming. But night 2, I thought felt pretty WrestleMania. And I will respectfully disagree with what Stefan said about the last match. Like, I'm glad there wasn't that much chicanery. I expected it. Travis Scott interfering, that's huge. But I remember last year's WrestleMania thinking that was way, way, way too overbooked. Like with The Rock and The Taker and the Seth thing, and then it was like really?
And John Cena. Don't forget, John Cena was there too. I'm
just saying, I thought again, you know me, Mike. I'm not the biggest fan of overbooked finishes, so I kind of like that it wasn't too crazy, even though I was expecting some stuff. And you also got some really good surprises. Well, okay. A lot of people were expecting it, but I was not expecting Becky Lynch. The Joe Hendry thing I thought was fun. Dom winning, hashtag Domberg.
Domberg, baby. You know what? I got a lot of predictions wrong, but I got that one right. That's all that matters. That matters.
And again, I'm not the biggest fan of triple threat matches, and I thought that opening match destroyed the opening match from Saturday night. It wasn't even close. So I was really happy with night 2. Night 1, though, yeah, totally agree with Stefan. That was very, very underwhelming.
Okay, before we go any further, Stefan, is it Stefan or Stefan? Because I feel that Stefan is the guy we have on the show. Stefan is the cooler version that comes out of you after you go into the personality adapting machine like Steve Urkel did on Family Matters.
You're right with the first one. It is Stefan, but I'll take Stefan. It's that's kind of how if I'd been in Vegas this weekend, I probably would have been there in a tux, just at the poker table, just going, "Hi, I'm Stefan."
Thank you very much. Okay, first of all, you should be wearing a tuxedo to WrestleMania. When I went to my first WrestleMania 18, I did wear a tuxedo, even though I was 50 rows back. Did not matter. It was my first WrestleMania. And then I covered myself in merch for 29 and looked like a doofus while Roman Reigns walked down the aisle. But anyway, so now that we've gotten the name controversy cleared up, guys, I have to say that after watching both nights, a lot of people were giving night 1 a lot of grief for being underwhelming. I don't think that's a bad thing. And hear me out. This is 2 nights of WrestleMania. It's a slog for us to watch at home. But as we've seen, especially with the chaos of people trying to get ride shares and stuff after night 1 and getting to all the other events here, I feel it was designed that way. I feel it was designed maybe not to be overall unimpressive from, a fan's view of the performances or whatever, which again is subjective. There were some big changes. I mean, the Rey Fenix from Rey Mysterio thing was a huge change. It kind of changed the whole dynamic of that match, to be honest. And I don't know. I mean, the Jey Uso thing, I hate to be this guy, and I'll only say things I feel that I have the courage I would say to their face. Jey Uso proved that he was more than an entrance. He's also now an exit. I still don't get it. I still don't get it. But he's got a good entrance. He's got a good exit. And we're not going to delve too deep in all this stuff here, but I wonder if the mechanics of it and the fan perception, while accurate, and I mean, you're going to feel how you're going to feel about things, I wonder if that's designed so that fans, for lack of a better term, don't blow their entire wad the first night. You know what I mean?
I would hope not, though, because, if I got a ticket for Saturday night and that was the show I got compared to the Sunday night, I'd be pissed. Given the money that I'd have to spend.
How many people do you think are buying just one night?
No, but again, I'm just saying. I just thought that. Again, I understand where you're coming from, but at the end of the day, they could have balanced it out a lot better. Night 1 was maybe 2 matches versus Sunday night where you could argue maybe one match was eh. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that doesn't sound.
So maybe
that
maybe
doesn't
two
sound
matches
right.
were like what you consider a WrestleMania match on the Saturday.
Yeah, there were two matches that I thought were WrestleMania worthy personally.
Well,
Okay, 2.5 maybe.
I hope for Tiffany Stratton's face's sake, that's one of them because
Yeah,
dear
that was
Lord.
absolutely one of them. But like
Dear
that,
Lord.
like that match, the triple threat match. Look, as much as I'm not a Punk guy, that was a WrestleMania match.
Oh yeah.
The rest of that card, I could have probably seen on Raw, versus what we saw on night 2, where arguably. And again, this is my own personal preference. I thought Logan Paul versus AJ Styles was the worst. Like, not the worst. It was the most boring match out of the whole night, and that was still pretty good.
I don't think it had a lot of believable heat behind it.
No.
Which is fine. You know, it's a match for the sake of a match. I mean, there's a lot of speculation on AJ not being there much longer, and we're starting to delve into the weeds here, which we're going to do again on the extended podcast version here. For those of you listening on the radio, we're going to have a couple of best of interviews today because it is Easter Monday. But for those of you listening on the podcast feed, again, a full show coming for you on Monday afternoon, going through all of WrestleMania with as much of the panel as we can get together here. But Stefan, what are your thoughts on my theory here of WrestleMania Day 1 being a slow build to WrestleMania Day 2?
I can see your point, Mike. I can. And it is actually surprising, your comment you made about how many people realistically are only going for one night. I was actually surprised on both WrestleMania 38 and 40 last year how many people were only doing either one night 1 or night 2. And I agree with what Joe says. It should be more of a balance because, you know, I agree with it. I thought the Tiffany and Charlotte match was one of the better matches for night 1, and the triple threat delivered. But it did very much have a feel of most of these matches just felt like they were matches that you'd see on Raw. I totally agree with Joe on that. But yeah, I think it is about finding the balance. But the thing is as well with WrestleMania, depending on, you know, what experience you want from the entire thing, it is a hectic experience. I mean, you know, you have everyone who they go to as many shows they can. They'll go to Stand and Deliver. They'll go to WrestleCon. They'll go to all these like parties and all this. It is absolutely crazy. So I think it's kind of what you personally want. WrestleMania weekend is definitely something that, because of so many options, it's what you want. The individual wants to make from it. So if you just want to go there just for the WrestleManias, you can do that. If you want to get and see all the shows that are available, you can do that. So
right.
I just think it's about the quality of night 1 and night 2. There should be a bit of a balance there. I think if they'd put maybe 1 or 2 of the matches from night 2 into night 1, maybe swapped a couple around, it may have felt a little bit more balanced. But I mean, I only feel cheated by the majority of night 1, and this Travis Scott thing, I don't get it. I genuinely, I don't get the Travis Scott thing. I really don't. And I just think for Cena winning his 17th title and how, you know, iconic his career's been and how much of a unique milestone this is. As we say, Ric Flair's recognized WWE, recognized 16 title wins. I just felt it was odd and strange, and I would have expected something a bit more. I agree with Joe. I don't think it needed to be overbooked, but I just expected, you know, not necessarily to book as many people into the main event as possible like they did last year, although I thought that 10 minutes of Bedlam was absolutely fantastic. But I would have, like, instead of Travis Scott, I would have had someone more significant play a role in the finish of that match. And that's why I felt cheated was that. I thought night 2 overall was, in general, felt like WrestleMania, but that main event finish let me down.
There's an interesting article that went up, and this is how much of a wrestling nerd I am. Okay, if you're listening to McGuire on Wrestling on the Radio right now, hi, I'm Mike McGuire, and I have a problem. My problem is that even on my LinkedIn profile, I get a lot of content from executives in WWE, AEW, other wrestling companies who are on LinkedIn because I have connections with some of them. And it's funny because there's an article talking about WWE's divide and conquer approach towards YouTube and social media now, where, as we've all sat here and discussed, I believe, through our different shows, the WWE's YouTube content has exploded because they're finding places there now to dump all their extra content. And I think that while to us wrestling fans, Travis Scott doesn't mean a hill full of water, so to speak, but to people that are watching reels and people that know who Travis Scott is, that's where they see the value in it. Now, for a WrestleMania main event, should The Rock have been out there? Probably. We don't know where he is, playing with Rubik's Cubes, wearing New Japan t-shirts. But at the same time, I see the method to the madness now. And again, this is the part of WrestleMania that isn't for us. There's a lot of parts of WrestleMania that aren't for the diehard 365 fans. Perfect example, that weird intro to kick off WrestleMania on day one with the video game DJ who's a playable character in some video game or whatever. I don't even know what that is because I am an increasingly older man. However, that was a part where it's like, hey, we got this cool thing. Look we're plugging our video game, and that's going to be a reel to plug that video game, and that's going to be the thing. So as much as the Travis guy, and I agree, like the guy comes out, sure, he can vault over the top rope, which I was actually quite impressed with. Because that's something I never managed to do. And I got guys that are way shorter than me that can do it. But I don't know. I don't got the hops for it, I guess. But, as far as his involvement in the match, I thought it was a little drawn out. I thought it was a little much. But at the same time, again, that's not for me. What's for me is seeing John Cena hold that title for the 17th time. So before we get into the big show, which we're going to do tomorrow here, guys, your final thoughts overall on WrestleMania and how you're feeling about WrestleMania 41. Stefan, we'll start with you.
As I said, I just felt underwhelmed. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but for the reasons, I think, because of how poor night one was, and for the as I said, the finish, in my personal opinion, of the main event tonight, I do think it was very underwhelming. That's all I can really say. It's just underwhelming. I didn't hate it, but I was underwhelmed.
Okay, well, I'm going to be probably the minority here that I thought it was probably a decent pair of nights. I think that doing 2 nights of WrestleMania is going to prove to be more and more difficult with the amount of overexposure we as fans have to content now. I think that sometimes we expect the world, and we're getting it now because, WWE now owns AAA, which is another story for another day. Holy Lord, am I excited about that, and also a little curious because they're now doing, and this is it, more is more, to quote a good friend and famous benefactor, so to speak. But they're now going to do 2 shows on the day that they're launching their first WWE AAA show. So that's going to be early on the Saturday, and then Money in the Bank is going to be that night, both in LA, both at different buildings. So again, like I said, more is more here. So I think as fans, we're subject to burning out more than they are at this point because they'll just keep throwing it at us here. Joe, your last thoughts here for WrestleMania 41 before we do our big review on the podcast feed tomorrow.
I think I'm kind of in the middle of both of you. I agree with Stefan that I was underwhelmed with night one specifically. But I think overall, had they just balanced this out, I think this would have been a decent show. So again, I think I'm just kind of in the middle of where you guys are.
All right. Well, there you have it. If you're listening on the radio, stick around. Some Best of McGuire on Wrestling coming up. And if you're listening on the podcast feed, make sure you hit that subscribe button and check tomorrow afternoon, where these 2 guys, as well as several others, expected to be here to give us their thoughts on WrestleMania, plus yours in a Yay Boo segment. All that on the way. Thanks for listening.